This is Raul Lowry Contreras, and this is the Contreras Report International Edition. Today we're going to talk about two things. Some things going on in Mexico and some things over in the Middle East, again, that we're following up on because there is a war going on and people are shooting each other every day. Item number one. After taking a giant step forward in energy production 7 years ago, Mexico takes two giant steps backwards, and investors in the US, Canada, and Spain are suspending new investments to see where Mexico is going under the Mexican Trump-like president, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. Item two, a Jewish military hero in a 95% Muslim nation as that nation fights for its territory this very day. Those are the two things we're going to talk about. So let's get started with Mexico. In 2013, President Enrique Peña Nieto formed an energy coalition with his main opposition, the Partido Acción Nacional party, the PAN party, to seek and accept private participation in energy production in Mexico, where everything from electricity to oil exploration and production was 100% government developed, generated, and owned. Spanish, Canadian, and American investors' investment money flowed into Mexico like never, ever before. We are talking billions of dollars, not pesos, dollars, that followed billions of dollars that had already gone into Mexico, since it economically allied with Canada and the United States in the original NAFTA agreement that both Mexican President Lopez Obrador and American President Donald Trump both hated. American companies like Arco, Chevron, and British Petroleum rushed into Mexico, opening gas stations everywhere. Mexican drivers loved them to this day. These stations have huge signs and banners selling 100% American gas. You see it everywhere. A second gold rush occurred in renewable energy. It's not a tourist fiction that the sun shines a lot in Mexico. It does. Solar power facilities sprung up all over Mexico, built mostly by Spanish investors. So much so that by President Obrador's inauguration on December 1st, 2018, 48% of all electrical energy in Mexico was generated by private facilities. The hitch here is that President Lopez Obrador hates private enterprise. On energy, at least, he is a 100% socialist. To be clear, socialist in this context is 100% ownership by the government of production and distribution to all users of all energy. Lopez Obrador started his takeover of energy production by stating openly that private electrical generation provided nothing to the nation's electrical grid. But that wasn't true. When he made that announcement, 48% of Mexico's electricity was being generated by private facilities. He followed that claim by claiming that government contracts to buy energy from private sources was done by corruption in the previous administration of Enrique Peña Nieto. In other words, contracts were made by bribery. He produced no proof then, and he has produced no proof now, to this day. The Attorney General, his appointee, if there is proof, should be able to call a news conference and say, here's what's going on and here's what we found. Has not done so. Lopez Obrador then appointed disgraced Mexican politician Manuel Bartlett from the old PRI, Partido Revolucionario Institucional, as chairman of the National Electricity Generation Company, the CFE, the Comisión Federal de Electricidad. In case people have forgotten, Bartlett was the government spokesman that announced on election night in 1988 that the government computers counting the ballots had crashed and that votes couldn't be counted by machine. People had to count the ballots. That is, government employees who had to be a member of the ruling party to be a government employee, and members of the ruling party, quote, volunteers. They counted the ballots. Naturally, the PRI won, even though everyone knows that it didn't. Bartlett is hugely suspect and is the living example of what Mexicans used to call PRI dinosaurs, the Partido Revolucionario Institucional dinosaurs, the old guys. A quick aside, Bartlett's son, just 2 weeks ago, has been banned from making contracts with the Mexican government for defrauding the government by not delivering ventilators he contracted to sell to the government to use in the fight against COVID-19. What ventilators he did deliver didn't function. He claims he didn't use his father's name or influence to secure multi-million-dollar contracts. Really? After declaring that private electrical generators didn't have anything to do with electricity in Mexico, which we know is false, López Obrador froze all permits for new projects, including those that were ready for certification and activation. Then he announced that no new applications for new facilities and new gasoline stations would be allowed. No new applications would be filed. Foreign investors are not happy. Everyone expects huge lawsuits by investors and operators, and that the courts will be busy, will be tied up for years, unraveling the legal hassles about contracts and good faith government. If anyone wonders why this deep to the core socialist is doing these deleterious to Mexico moves and statements and official actions by his cronies and gophers, one word comes to mind: PEMEX, the government-owned oil explorers, producer, refiners, and retail seller to all markets, public and private. That's the word, PEMEX. It's broken. It's busted. It's essentially bankrupt. Its paper, its bonds, $100 billion worth of bonds are considered to be junk bonds, almost worthless. PEMEX was first organized by fellow socialists, as my great-grandmother knew him. My great-grandmother knew him very well. And his brother, the president's brother, lived across the street from the house where I was born in Mexico City. My great-grandmother, who knew President Cárdenas well, Lázaro Cárdenas, called him a communist. He is Obrador's spiritual father, President Lázaro Cárdenas. He expropriated the entire oil industry of Mexico in 1938. That was American companies, Dutch companies, and British companies. At that time, Mexico was the world's second largest producer of oil. That was in 1938. López Obrador fancies himself to be Cárdenas's successor, in spirit at least. Unfortunately for Mexico, he has 4 more years in office. We will see what we will see in the next few years, but investors aren't waiting. They're holding back now, and that hurts Mexico. Item number 2, a Jewish national hero of a Muslim nation. That's the title of this piece. And I will start with camel caravans of nomadic Muslim Arabs in Saudi Arabia were my first exposure to Muslims. I didn't see them. They were described to me by my grandfather when he returned from working on post-World War II oil fields in Saudi Arabia. He came back, or he worked there in 1946 and 47. He was ordered home when war broke out between Saudi Arabia and the newly born Jewish state of Israel. In one form or another, that war has continued in desert battlegrounds and diplomatic venues to this day. It seems we are but steps away in the Eastern Mediterranean from more conflict and or in the Caucasus region, where an almost 30-year conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan is tempered by a 26-year-old ceasefire. Despite the ceasefire and diplomatic efforts by OSCE, that's the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and the United Nations to settle the conflict and ending occupation of 20% of the Republic of Azerbaijan by Armenian forces, the only shots fired in anger I have ever heard, despite 8 years in the United States Marine Corps between 1959 and 1967, were 500 yards away from Armenian-occupied Azerbaijan territory while I was standing close to the front line, to the line of conflict, as it's called. They were fired from Russian-supplied artillery fired on the front line at Azerbaijan forces. They went right over my head. A couple hundred miles away, however, I found a huge new statue of a soldier commanding a tank in the 1992 war between Armenia and Azerbaijan. His name, Albert Agarunov, that's spelled A-G-A-R-U-N-O-V, Agarunov. Tank commander, Albert Agarunov. The statue was unveiled by Azerbaijan in November 2019 on an avenue in Baku, Azerbaijan's capital, named after the monument. The street was named after Agarunov. The 23-year-old tank commander, Albert Agarunov, was killed by an Armenian sniper in the final days of the Battle of Shusha on May 7, 1992, after leading tanks in battle so effectively, he was named a national hero of Azerbaijan, a hero of a new army that fought against better armed Armenian Russian forces that had run roughshod since their massacre of hundreds of unarmed men, women, and children 3 months earlier at Khojaly, Azerbaijan. Tank Commander Agarunov's reputation as a combat leader was enhanced by his clearing, when possible, bodies of dead soldiers of both sides so that his tanks didn't inadvertently desecrate them. National heroes come and go. How many Americans, for example, have heard of Texan Audie Murphy, our most decorated soldier of World War II, or of fellow Texan Cleto Rodriguez, the second most decorated American soldier of World War II? How many have heard of them today? One huge factor separates Tank Commander Albert Agarunov from other national heroes, even of the United States. Azerbaijan is 95% Muslim. It is, let me repeat that, it is a 95% Muslim country, sandwiched between Muslim Iran on the south and Russian Muslim territory on the north. Tank Commander Albert Agarunov was Jewish. National hero of Azerbaijan, Albert Agarunov was trained as a conscript teenager truck driver in the Soviet Army of 1986-87. He was just an ordinary citizen when he answered the call for volunteers to fight invading Armenia. He was, however, a member of the Jewish community that to this day is a respected, substantial part of Azerbaijan's 10 million people. There are approximately 30,000 Jews in Azerbaijan today. They are concentrated in the capital Baku and north of it in a city called Kuba, as well as other cities in the general northern area. Those are called mountain Jews. They have 8 synagogues in Kuba alone, in the Jewish Red Town, it's called, the Jewish quarter, I guess. And it's called Red Town because the houses and the roofs are all red. Trust me, I've seen them. The Red Town, often called the Jerusalem of the Caucasus, was founded in 1742 at the initiative of the region's Azerbaijani Muslim leader who provided land and protection to Jews. Today, the red town of Azerbaijan is the largest all-Jewish town outside of Israel and the United States, and the last surviving shtetl, meaning Jewish town, in Europe. In Baku, there are 2.5 synagogues. Let me quote that, 2.5 synagogues. There is a synagogue of Mountain Jews, an Ashkenazi one, which also has a separate room for Georgian Jews with roots in the next-door neighbor Republic of Georgia. Ashkenazi Jews have German roots. They immigrated to Baku, Azerbaijan, over a century ago to work in what was the leading oil-producing region in the world that had pioneered the worldwide oil industry. During World War II, Azerbaijan sheltered 10,000 Ashkenazi Jews from Nazi-organized extermination, aka what is known as the Holocaust. Azerbaijan was a forward-looking country during its independence years of 1918 and 20, in which Jews could work in medicine, business, law, in government, and the military. Women could vote a year before American women could vote in 1919. The Free Democratic 1918 government of Azerbaijan was extinguished by communist Armenian and Russian Bolshevik armies shortly after its independence began. Synagogues were shut down by Soviet communist Jews, and Jews were not allowed to function during the 70 years of Soviet communism. That ended in 1991, when Azerbaijan broke away from the Soviet Union. Today, Israel buys 40% of its oil from staunchly secular majority Muslim Azerbaijan. It sells billions of dollars in defense equipment to Muslim Azerbaijan. Israeli tourists visit Azerbaijan. The Pope visited Azerbaijan. I know because I was there when he was there. The old Silk Road trade routes through Azerbaijan are now new rails, ships that use a modern port on the Caspian Sea, and airspace the United States used to reach Afghanistan in its decades-long fight against terrorism, an area where Azerbaijan has developed a strong partnership with the U.S. since September 11, 2001. A Jewish woman even served as a justice on the Azerbaijani Supreme Court till early this year. I know because I've met her twice. When she retired as the first Jewish woman to ever serve on the Supreme Court, probably of any nation in Europe. I haven't researched that, but I'm just guessing. A Jewish man is a member of Azerbaijan's parliament. Jews are represented in all three branches of the Azerbaijani government. Today, Tank Commander Albert Agarunov, a Jew, is a national hero in majority Muslim Azerbaijan. Albert's story, as well as the peaceful life of Jews in Azerbaijan, characterized by unique Muslim-Jewish coexistence, gives us all tremendous hope for the possibility of sustainable peace between Jews and Muslims in the Middle East and around the world. So that's my story from the Middle East today. I'm going to wrap up with a few comments about the American political situation because it is October 15th and we have about 19 days left before the election of November 3rd. And as things stand right now, if the election were held today, the polls indicate that Joe Biden would win. What's going to happen the next 18 days, we don't know, because we have one more debate scheduled a week from today, as a matter of fact, and hopefully it will come off and both sides will be happy and claim that they did well, because if they both claim they did well, then the people can decide between the two. So that's a situation. We're waiting for these last few days to see if anything important is going to develop. But in the meantime, the American election rolls on. And if you haven't voted by the time you've seen this, please vote. If you can, early or by mail or by absentee. But in any event, please vote. I personally will vote early. I do that every year I can. I go right to the registrar of voters and vote right there. That way I know my vote will count. Thank you for being there. I'm Raul Lowry Contreras, and this is the Contreras Report, International Edition, October 15. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.